Hey, this is Andrew, and I am now going to walk through a house review of Untamed in Dark Tidings, which is pretty cool, I think. I already explained in my logos video why I'm doing these after so long, deal with it. But here are, yeah, let's talk about Untamed. So, to start out with, I'll I'll ask myself, what house would I most like to see with Untamed if I open up a Dark Tidings deck with Untamed in it? And the answer is Logos. The reverse of, you know, on the Logos video I said Untamed. And the reason is because Logos can really do a good job archiving and setting up for a bursty turn in Untamed. Untamed in Dark Tidings is different from Untamed in Coda, but it has a lot of similarities, and it, to me it feels the closest uh, to Coda Untamed out of any of the sets. Cheloni is a part of that, but we also, yeah, well, we'll get to it anyway. I think it really is the closest in terms of yeah, being a little like the old Coda Untamed. So let's talk about what I mean by that. What things might I expect to see in in an Untamed setup for Dark Tidings? What capabilities might I expect it to give me? And the first and most obvious one is that I expect to generate a lot of amber, and this is so much more true here than it was in previous sets. Uh, you know, Age of did Age of Ascension have Harmonia? Is that what I'm thinking of? Maybe it was Worlds Collide. Yeah, Worlds Collide had Harmonia that could generate amber when a creature's played, but only if you have fewer creatures than your opponent. Chelonia, on the other hand, doesn't care. It just, if the tide is high, it does it. Um, you have uh, you have a key cheat, although we'll talk about Key Frog later. But we have Key Frog. You have some, you know, amber pips on creatures, ways to chain reaping that actually weren't in Coda Untamed. So there's just a lot of cool opportunities here and things that work really well to just burst in Untamed. We have uh, a Mookling instead of normal Mermook, and that can even boost key cost. Yeah, we have really solid artifact control. I don't think the artifact control was that good in Coda Untamed. So, um, some destruction, and I actually think that the house definition is probably better in this set for Untamed than in any previous set because you have Amber Generation, you have a lot of focus on making things reap, and you also have just even more focus on creature power, getting power counters on creatures, rewarding you for that, rewarding you for having bigger creatures, etc. So there's, I think, like I said, even more of a focus than in previous sets on having a creature power advantage in one way or another. All right. So my favorite in-house combo, there are a couple that maybe even three that I'll have to list, but I think my favorite is Waste Not plus Mushroom Man because getting to have a two-card combo that nets you an amber and draw 6 cards is pretty cool. And Waste Not is just in general a good card, but when you get it with Mushroom Man early in the game, it's really fun. Um, Growth Surge plus Ambermancy is an insane 6 amber combo. We'll talk about that later, but that's a pretty cool combo. Um, some of the power counter bumping with an immediate reap effect like Reap or Sow on Spore Gorger can be amazing. And and there are some, I don't have one, but there are some Evil Twin Witch of the Dawn decks out there that just do insane things. So that's fun to see. And Yeah, I like Witch of the Dawn combos. Um, if I could get any card back as a legacy, I think it would have to be Nepenthe Seed. Although Nature's Call would be great too. That is a thing that's missing in the sort of Chelonia burst setup. Honestly, Chota would be great as well. Those are all good options. Um, yeah. Oh, Evil Twin Witch of the Dawn with Keyfrog. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think a Nepenthe Seed would probably be my top choice, but things like a Nature's Call would be great as well. Um, Abandoned Ship is the card I would want as a Maverick because it would fill that Nature's Call role actually better than Nature's Call. So although it doesn't have an up to, so you would be forced to put 4 in people's hands, but if you're doing a crazy Chelonia thing, then you're pretty happy about that. All right, without further ado, let's dive into the cards. So we'll be going commons, uncommons, rares, and I have the evil twins right after their good twin version, and additionally, I actually don't think there are really any special rarities in here. So, all right, all tied up is an action with an amber. It says if the tide is high, you gain an amber, otherwise raise the tide. This is a little boring, but it's very untamed to just say, you just get an extra amber. So, play a card for 2 amber is pretty fine if the tide is high. Otherwise, this is a nice little tide raiser. So, I'm happy with this. Assert Dominance is an action that after you play it, it says for the remainder of the turn, a friendly creature gains skirmish, ready, and fight with that creature. That's pretty great. Um, yeah, it's just a nice, beneficial little use. No amber on it. Um, I think that's probably reasonable, although it is common to end up in a situation where there's just not much to do with it. Like, okay, well, I fought something, I killed it, but nothing crazy exciting happened. That's okay. It's still, I think, a pretty good card. All right, Chelonia. So if you are looking for Untamed Burst in Dark Tidings, this is your workhorse. Chelonia is a 2-power beast and witch. It says after you play another creature, if the tide is high, gain an amber, and it has elusive. So comparing this to Hunting Witch, which was a real staple of Coda Burst, um, you do have to have the tide be high, but it's elusive. So this actually, I think, is better than Hunting Witch because it's harder to kill. Imagine if Hunting Witch had elusive. And yeah, sometimes you'll have to take chains to get the tide, but unlike a card like Medicus Lacus, which um, your opponent most of the time is going to be able to take the tide before you would care. With Chelonia, you can take the tide and then do your thing, and that can be pretty bonkers. So yeah, this is a great card. The Evil Twin version just changes instead of you gaining an amber, your opponent loses one. And that's strictly worse because, well, I don't know if it's strictly worse, but in mathematical terms, it is strictly worse because there's no ceiling on the amber you can gain, but there is a ceiling on or a floor, I guess, on the amber your opponent can lose. So this will have no effect more often than the normal Chelonia will. But control is still good. So I don't want to totally poo-poo it, but I do think it is probably a little bit worse. And Untamed, just generally as an identity, wants to rush and um, key cheat out. So uh, control is very off identity for them, which is the point of the evil twins. But this may not fit very well with the rest of what a deck is doing. That's not always going to be the case, though. Sometimes it'll be good. Your mileage may vary. All right, Myliobe. This is a great fun one. I love this card. It's a 4-power beast. While the tide is high, it gets skirmish. And before it fights, you enrage the creature it's fighting and each of that creature's neighbors. This is really, really nice board control. So, I mean, this is on par, I think, with like Valucanth, which exhausts creatures, and in fact, enraging lasts longer. So, yeah, this is pretty cool. If you get a fight off with this, you're pretty happy because of those three enrages. Um, yeah, and it happens before fight. So even if you don't want to take the tide and it doesn't have skirmish and it's going to die, the enrage is still going to happen. So that's pretty great. Reap or Sow is an action. When you play it, you choose to either ready and reap with a friendly creature, or give 3+1 power counters to creatures distributed as you choose. Usually, I'd rather ready and reap, but it's nice that it has that extra option. And yeah, ready and reap is, yeah, that doesn't need an amber. That's fine. So I like it. And often you can direct this at a creature with a nice reap effect. So that's very, very beneficial. Witch of the Dawn is a 3-power human witch. When you play it, you return a creature from your discard pile to your hand. That can be pretty good. Yeah, it depends on what's in your discard pile, of course. This is equivalent um, to regrowth, obviously, but and for efficiency purposes, you probably would rather take an untamed creature, and put it back in your hand. And so, if you have this in a deck with Chelonia and Mookling and the good untamed creatures, it's going to be really beneficial. Witch of the Dawn is a 3-power. Oh, the evil twin version is still 3-power witch, but when you play it, you destroy another friendly creature. If you do, play a different creature from your discard pile, ready, and use that creature. So that's a little complicated. You have to have another creature out, you have to destroy it, um, and then you get to play ready and use a creature from your discard pile. Play ready and use is a pretty strong effect. And I love this, especially if you have a lot of. Yeah, I would love to have this on the deck with a lot of destroyed effects. That could be pretty cool. This is yeah, I think a pretty good card. Youngest Bear is a 2-power beast that says reap. You may reap with one of Youngest Bear's neighbors. This is really nice to drop into a reap or sow on, or to put out with an evil twin Witch of the Dawn. Get that quick reap in. The effect's pretty good, and this is low power, so oftentimes it's going to die quickly. But the effect is pretty nice if you can pull it off. And the evil twin version, same stats, says the reap effect though is you may fight with one of its neighbors. That makes sense. Evil twins twist things like that a little bit. Um, Usually I'd rather reap than fight, so I think the good version of this is actually a little better. All right, Way of the Pixie is an upgrade. It gives a creature reap, gain an amber, so turns anything into a dew fairy essentially. That's pretty nice. Deepwater Groon is a 5-power beast with 2 amber pips. This is crazy because you compare this to, say, Fuzzy Groon. It compares very, clearly to Fuzzy Groon. Same stats. The only difference here is it has play reap. If the tide is low, your opponent gains 1. It's important that it says if the tide is low, because if the tide is just neutral, you're fine. You don't get the consequence here. Um, so compared to Fuzzy Groon, though, this is a common, not a rare, uh, and it really, yeah, creates a nice, beefy, chunky Amber generation tool in a lot of Untamed Dark Tiding decks. So this is great, and you can think of this as taking the place of Dust Pixie uh, in in Coda Untamed. But big, it's 5 power, so it just has that one little drawback. But you can take the tide, and you're fine. If you're playing against decks that, non-Dark Tiding decks, then you're almost always going to have the tide. So yeah, really not much of a drawback. So I think in most cases this is better than a Dust Pixie. All right, in fighting, this is a board wipe. Uh, sort of. So it's an action. When you play it, each creature deals damage equal to its power to its right neighbor. The one drawback to this card, in my view, is it's a little fiddly. You play it, you have to, if you have big boards, you have to look, okay, for this much damage here, this much damage here, this creature's going to die. It's a little fiddly, but it's a cool effect. And if you know that it's coming up in your deck, you can kind of plan ahead a little bit and maybe do like, 1-3-5 instead of 5-3-1 so that your creatures will survive. And if you know your opponent has it, you could even play around it a little bit too. I think it's fun to have board wipes that make your opponent think about where they put creatures. All right, Mollymawk. This is some artifact control here. It's a 5-power beast. When you play it, you destroy an artifact. That's pretty good. The only thing here, it's not a great answer to say Quixelstone because Quixelstone could prevent you from playing the Mollymawk, and then you don't get to destroy the Quixelstone. But outside of that, it's pretty great. And if you have great artifacts and your opponent doesn't have any, maybe you can always just discard it. It doesn't feel too bad to do that. But in fact, I'd probably feel better about discarding this than say a Reclaim by Nature. So yeah, it's pretty solid. Mookling is a 2-power beast that makes your opponent's keys cost plus X, where X is Mookling's power. So this fits into that increased power theme and can really create some interesting situations. And in fact, you could get this in a deck with Hadroth's Wall because that's in this set. Where you're just getting 2 for having it on a flank. Um, there's all sorts of fun things that could happen, but a lot of power counters in Untamed itself that can boost this and help simultaneously increase its staying power on the board and increase your opponent's key costs, which is very cool. The Evil Twin version, same stats, says after your opponent forges a key, give Mookling a +1 power counter for each amber spent to forge that key. So this gets bigger when your opponent forges a key. That's worse. Because it's more important to stop a key than to just have a big creature. So I think the normal Mookling is strongly preferable in this case. All right, Flumph is a 3-power beast and cat. It's back from Mass Mutation. It has Skirmish, and after it fights, you give a beast creature 2+1 power counters. So this could grow your Myliobe or your Mookling. That's pretty cool. So there's a lot of room for there to be cool things happening here. Most of the cats did not make it into this set. I think this might be the only. Is this the only cat that made it in? I think so. Um, there were a bunch of cats in Mass Mutation. This is the only one that made it into Dark Tidings. And Keyfrog is also back for Mass Mutation. It's a 2-power beast with Destroyed, Forge a key at current cost. And yeah, it's a very useful effect. I, I think these are, Keyfrog is a little underpowered compared to, say, Chota Hazri or Key Charge because those just fire immediately. Although it has the benefit of being able to set you up to fire it on a subsequent turn from a different house. So I guess it's not strictly worse, but most of the time I'd rather have a Key Charge or Chota Hazri. But hey, it works. And it does not increase the cost at all. So that's a nice benefit. All right, Persistence Hunting is an action with an amber. When you play it, you choose a house and exhaust each enemy creature of that house. This is back from AOA, and it's a nice creature control card. I like it. Never sad to see this. The Fittest is an action with an amber that gives each friendly creature a +1 power counter, making you bigger than the opponents. Very nice. All right, that's it for the commons. But I think there's really good stuff in the commons here. Like if you had a deck that was just made up of untamed common cards, you actually would be pretty happy. It's good stuff. All right, on to the uncommons. Ambermancy is an action with an amber. When you play it, you remove up to 3+1 power counters from a creature, and you gain 1 amber for each counter removed this way. So potentially getting 4 amber from playing this card, the one that's printed, +3 for removing +1 power. Interestingly, you can remove them from opponent's creatures. You can remove them from your own. It does not specify, and that's fine. Yeah, play this, gain 4 cards. That's pretty great. So I really like this one. And it just combos so well with cards we've already seen and a few more that we have coming up. Beach Day is an action with an amber. When you play it, you return a creature to its owner's hand. If the tide is high, gain 1. So this is like a very underpowered version of Nature's Call, right? Because Nature's Call says up to 3. This is just 1. But it can give you an extra amber, so that's fine. Um, I just probably most of the time would prefer the control, but yeah, it's fine. And you get this with like your Grunes. Wow, that is crazy amber generation. Cross Porpoises, a great pun and a really good card. It's an action with an amber. When you play it, you raise the tide and enrage 2 enemy creatures, which is nice creature control. It's slow creature control. You're not destroying the creatures right away, but you are uh, preventing them from reaping, which is good. And just unconditional raise the tide. Yeah, it's a solid card. All right, Genetic Drift, action with an amber. When you play it, you give a creature a +1 power counter, and then you give each creature, including your opponents, that already has a +1 power counter, another +1 power counter. So this helps build you into having the biggest board. But you got to have some +1 counters out already to make it really worth the while. I mean, you get the one, and then, but it's nice if you already have some other creatures that are boosted. All right, Old Patty is a 5-power beast and fisher. It has Reap, discard the bottom card of your deck or the bottom 3 cards instead if the tide is high, and you play each creature discarded this way one at a time. It's a fun effect. This is a very fun card to use, and kind of a cool way to just build out the board quickly. I love Old Patty. It's I may be a little biased because I'm on the Ancient Bear Republic team, but I really think Old Patty is a fun card in addition to being decently good. The Evil Twin version, same stats, but looks extra scary and has Reap, discard the bottom card of your opponent's deck or the bottom 3 cards instead if the tide is high, destroy a creature that shares a house with one of the discarded cards. So, and that's a fun effect too. That's actually more similar to like drawn down, the part of the Dark Discovery combo from Unfathomable. But yeah, I think this is a really nice effect. You have a good likelihood of being able to destroy one of your opponent's creatures. You knocked some cards out of their deck, disrupted them a little bit. This is great. I think both versions of this card are really fun and interesting and good. All right, Spore Gorger is a 4-power beast and fungus. When it reaps, you give it a +1 power counter, and you can then remove all the +1 counters from it to deal 1 damage for each one of those to each other creature. So if you have 2 counters already on it, you reap with it, you give it a 3rd counter, you choose to remove the counters, it goes back down to 4 power, and you do 3 damage to everybody else, is how that would work. And that can be a really nice effect. This is a good way to trigger Key Frog in some cases. I mean, when the time is right. It's also a very nice board wipe, and it's extra cool because it's like you have a board wipe ready to go, but the longer you wait and don't use it, the harder it gets for the opponent to remove it. So and so your likelihood of being able to actually fire the board wipe when you want goes up. It's a cool card. There is an Evil Twin version. When you play it, you move each +1 power counter in play to it, and then when it reaps, you can. It's the same reap effect, but instead of gaining, well, it doesn't ever gain them after it's played. So when it's played, every +1 counter on the whole board comes to it, but it still has that you can, when you reap, you can remove the power counters on it to deal damage. That's cool. I don't think I've ever actually played this card, but that's a cool effect. Thin the Herd is, I guess, filling the slot that in the past would have been Lost in the Woods. It's an action with an amber. When you play it, you shuffle the 4 least powerful creatures into their owner's decks. And since your creatures are getting bigger, 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 this is probably mostly affecting your opponent, which is kind of cool. Waste Not is kind of a crazy card. It's crazy to have efficiency cards, draw efficiency cards like this in Untamed. Um, and so there are only a couple, but it's good and fun. So Waste Not is an action with an amber. When you play it, you destroy a friendly creature and you draw cards equal to half that creature's power, rounding up. So if you destroy a Mushroom Man before your first key, Mushroom Man would be power 11. You get to draw 6 cards. Undignathus would also get you 6 cards. Um, a what's the 15 power? There's even a 16 power Gargantodon. In Saurian, then you draw 8 cards. So um, there's some cool stuff you can do here. I like getting this with Saurian because you get an Undignathus. You're not that excited about it, but killing it to draw 6 on an untamed turn is pretty good. Bumblebird, not one of my favorites, but at least here the +1 counters mean a little more because of the other combos that are going on. It's a 1 power beast and insect. It has alpha, and when you play it, you give 2 +1 power counters to each other friendly untamed creature. The problem is that because of the alpha, you have to play it first thing on your turn, which means your untamed creatures have to already be out. So this often does nothing. That's okay. But if you can get it to fire, the rewards I think in Dark Tidings are a little higher than in other sets, and it's so cute. The art here is so good. All right, Fangtooth Cavern. Love this card. It's an artifact with an amber. It's a location. At the end of your turn, you destroy the least powerful creature. And there are decks with 2, 3 of these even, but even one is pretty good. This just keeps the board situation under control. It can't run away. If you're getting behind, you just discard cards instead of playing them, and you know that the cavern is going to swallow your enemy's creatures. Yeah, and this just fits again. I think thematically better in this set than it did um, in Worlds Collide and Mass Mutation because you have so many ways to boost the power of your untamed creatures in this set. All right, Gebuk is a 5 power beast. It has destroyed, discard the top card of your deck if it is a creature. After Gebuk leaves play, put that creature into play in Gebuk's position in the battle line. Still boring. Yeah, never happy to see this because it's just if it hits, great, but sometimes it can really mess you up if it discards, a great artifact or action. And even if you do hit a creature, you don't get any play effects. So I just don't love Gebek. All right, Growth Surge is an action with an amber. When you play it, it works just like Positron Bolt, but with +1 counters instead of damage. So you give a flank creature 3 counters, give its neighbor 2 counters, and the third creature in the line gets 1 counter. And you play this, and then you play Ambermancy. You get the amber from this, the amber printed on the Ambermancy, and then take those 3 away. You're up to 5 amber total in the combo. I think I might have said 6 before, but 5 is pretty good for a 2 card combo. And then you're still left potentially with 3 more +1 power counters that you got. So pretty cool. And even if without that, getting this with Mookling, quick way to burst it up, Spore Gorger, etc. Instrument of Silence is an upgrade. It gives a creature skirmish and the ability fight, gain an amber. This is great. I have a deck where it doesn't care much about the tide, but it has a Myliobe, and I'll often put this on the Myliobe so it has skirmish even if the tide is low. Yeah, it's a nice card. Kangafant is not a nice card, although ran into a weird situation with it the other day. So Kangafant is a 5 power beast. It gives each creature reap, destroy this creature. So the other day I was playing against my brother-in-law Sealed, and he had a Rocketeer Triska on the board, dropped Kangafant, and then just would drop creatures next to the Triska, and so they'd come in ready next to the Triska. He'd reap, the creature be destroyed, he could drop another one there and reap. So every creature basically got to come in, reap once, and die, which it turns out is pretty good. So that was really interesting. Most of the time, this is not a creature I like to see, but with the Triska, that was a very interesting combo. All right, Mushroom Man is a 2 power fungus and human that gets +3 power for each unforged key you have. So towards the beginning of the game, it's very big and buff. Towards the end, it wanes off. And yeah, it's interesting. I'm not that in love with just having big bodies with no abilities on them. But pair this with Waste Not, like I said, and you're pretty happy. All right, Ritual of Balance. This one is back from Coda. It is an artifact, it's a power, and it has action if your opponent has 6 or more amber, steal one. That's just a nice effect. Pair this with like a Mookling so you can keep boosting the cost of their keys. You'll have more likelihood of being able to actually use this. Um, yeah, it's a nice effect. I have a Coda deck that has two copies of this card, and that's really fun. You can put people up to 7 and then still steal them down to 5 if you have both things out. So yeah, pretty cool card. All right, now we are on to, oh, I did these in the wrong order. Oh well, that's okay. Now we're on to the rares, and we're going to start with the Pokemon. Um, So I think everybody's probably familiar with Pokemon, but just in case, one of the concepts in the Pokemon lore is that you have these creatures that evolve to become bigger, more powerful creatures, and uh, there's in particular a few different creatures in different Pokemon that have a pattern of larva, pupa, winged insect. And so I suspect this had to be a very intentional nod to that trope. But anyway, so this is a set of 3 cards that come together. Channel is the rare, and the other 2 are special rarity. So Channel is a 1 power insect with hazardous 6. It has action return a Bombix from your discard pile to your hand. So if you happen to have a Bombix earlier and it's now in your discard pile, if your Channel is ready, you can action it to bring the Bombix into your hand. And then when you play the Bombix, it has a bonus to Amber, so it makes up for not reaping. And when you play it, you destroy a friendly channel. If you don't, then you destroy the Bombix. So if the first one is not out, when you play the second one, you'll still get the Amber, but then the second one will kill itself. So anyway, the Bombix is a 2 power insect with 6 armor. And then it has an action that returns the Fifalda, which is the third one from your discard pile to your hand. And so the Fifalda also has an amber on it. It's a 9 power insect. When you play it, you destroy Bombix, the second one, and if you didn't, then you destroy Fifalda. And this is a 9 power creature with Fight, Reap, Fully Heal it, and gain 1. That's amazing, but it's a lot of work, at least 3 turns to get it to the board. Most likely a lot more than that. So I kind of think I feel like if the well, okay, I'll start by saying generally, I don't think these are considered to be good. But um, you do get the amber, and so I actually think these are decent amber generators. They just aren't that interesting as creatures because you have to get them in such a specific order. I do think that if you had an Omni ability instead of the action, and the ability instead of being return it to your hand, it was like Omni play a Bombix or play a Fafalda from your discard pile, I think that would be much more interesting and better. So I kind of wish it were set up that way. The way it's set up, it's just a little bit under the power curve, I think, or it's enough under the power curve. Yeah, I think it's kind of a problem. All right, Amberfin Shark is a 3 power beast. When you play it, you give it 3+1 power counters. At the end of your turn, you remove a power counter from it, and if you do, each player gains 1 amber. So if it stays on the board, then you're giving each player 3 amber over the course of 3 turns as this thing is getting smaller and smaller. That's a really neat idea. I love they did this. Yeah, it's fun, and spacing it out that way too means it can factor into like shadows, things you might want to do, etc. So I think it's a cool effect. There is a There's an evil twin version here. It's a 3-power beast also, and it says at the end of your turn, each player loses an amber, and Amberfin Shark gets a +1 power counter for each amber that was lost that way. So it's actually getting bigger as you're losing the amber, which is a cool effect. So I like that one too. I don't think I've actually ever played one, but it seems like a really cool effect. And that's the funny thing about evil twins. You really can go a long time even playing a lot without seeing one. All right, Dredging Druid is a 2-power human witch with elusive, and it says if the tide is high, put up to 3 creatures from your discard pile on top of your deck. That's a cool effect. That is a pretty cool effect. I don't think I've ever actually used this either. Um, but that is a cool effect. Hester Grove is an artifact with an amber. It's a location. It says each creature enters play enraged. That is a real game changing / game breaking effect. Um, and yeah, I would love to have a great deck with this because it just changes the game so much. I like that. Primal Relic. We talked about the Logos version of this. This one is the Untamed version, so it's going to care about power rather than number of cards played. Anyway, it has an amber. It's a treasure. So when you play it, you put 4 amber on it, and you give 3 creatures a +1 power counter. And then at the start of each player's turn, if they control creatures with total power 20 or higher, you move each amber from this to that player's pool. That's kind of cool because um, it sets up a back and forth where you have a chance to respond, just like with Forging Key. You have a chance to try to get your opponent to where they couldn't trigger this, and they have a chance to do the same to you until finally somebody starts their turn with 20 powers worth of creatures and can do this. All right, Ritual of Life is an artifact. It's a power. It has action. Destroy a friendly creature. If you do, return a different creature from your discard pile to your hand. I love this card. This is really fun, especially if you have some untamed creatures with good play effects. I have one deck that I really enjoy. It's not super high powered, but it's still really fun. That has this with shadows and cards like Brend, the Fanatic. So you can destroy the Brend on your Untamed turn, get back another card. It's pretty cool. The Mysticeti is an artifact. It's a beast and ship, and it has action exhaust 1 or more friendly untamed creatures. If you do, give the Mysticeti 3+1 power counters for each creature exhausted this way, and move it anywhere in your battle line as a creature with 0 power and taunt. So 0 power plus the power counters you gave it by exhausting creatures and taunt. Um, uh, Exhausting, you know, 3 creatures to get a 9 power creature with taunt seems like a lot of work. Um, so yeah, I don't think this is great. Oh well. Washed Away is an action with an amber. When you play it, if the tide is high, you destroy each artifact. That is really solid artifact control. Otherwise, you raise the tide. So I love these dual purpose cards. Yeah, this is a really nice one. I like Washed Away. Blossom Drake is even more artifact control. It's a 4-power dragon. It gets a +1. Well, it has +1 power for each artifact in play, and it blinks the text boxes of artifacts except for their traits. So this just nullifies all artifacts, including your own. Um, but yeah, this is a really fun card, and it's back from Mass Mutation. But yeah, I love this card. All right, Chonkers is a 1-power mutant with Skirmish. When you play it, you put a power counter on it, and then it says after an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Chonkers, double the number of +1 power counters on Chonkers. So when you play it, it gets 1. When you fight and kill something small, it gets another 1. Now it's at 3 power. Next time it'll go to 5, um, then 9. It's a little Fibonacci-ish, I guess. It's not quite the Fibonacci sequence, but it's close. And it almost never gets big. These things tend to die quickly. All right, Creed of Nature is an artifact. It's a power. It has Omni, destroy Creed of Nature. If you do, choose a creature. For the remainder of the turn, that creature gains Skirmish and Assault X. X is its power. Um, Meh. This is pretty meh. All right, Eldest Bear is a 5-power beast, leader, and witch. It has Assault 3, and when it's in the center of your battle line, it gains before fight, gain 2 amber. It's important that be before fight because that means it can trigger before the Assault 3. Yeah, this is a good card. I like Eldest Bear. It's hard to get it to fire or do anything useful, but when it does hit, it's, you know, Assault 3 with gain 2 amber is pretty great. Fertility Chant is an action with 4 bonus pips, and after you play it, your opponent gains 2 amber. So a little give and take there. It was also in Mass Mutation and Coda before that. So this is an oldie but goodie card, and really, yeah, fits nicely with the Ritual of Balance in my view, and and the Mooklings can negate the craziness there too. But yeah, it's a fun card. Fuzzy Groon is a 5-power beast with 2 amber. Um, and when you play it, your opponent gains 1. So Deepwater Groon can actually even be, I forgot. This always gives your opponent 1. Deepwater Groon only does it if the tide is low. If the tide is low. So I think Deepwater Groon is actually better than Fuzzy Groon. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And I like how Archon Arcana says there's an evil twin version. That's true, there is, but it's from the cooperative campaign, the Abyssal Conspiracy. I think it's not actually something you can get in a deck. Lupo the Scarred is a 6-power beast. When you play it, you deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. It has Skirmish. Pretty simple, but yeah, it's a nice big creature. Solid. Piranha Monkeys, I really rarely am happy to see these in my deck or my opponent's. It's a 2-power beast with Play Reap, deal 2 damage to each other creature. That is crazy. Very disruptive for everybody. Punctuated Equilibrium is a crazy card. It's an action. Each player discards their hand, then refills their hand as if it were their draw card step. That's pretty fun. This is a great combo disruptor. If your opponent's been saving up to do something cool, they lose that card and they can't do the cool thing. That's good for you. Stampede is an action with an amber. It says if you use 3 or more creatures this turn, steal 2. I have almost never had this fire, but it's a cool dream, and that's okay for a rare to be difficult to fire. That's fine. Word of Returning. So happy to see this back. It was in Mass Mutation. It's in Dark Tidings, but before that, it had been missing since Coda. It's an action with an amber. When you play it, you deal 1 damage to each enemy creature for each amber on it, and then move each amber from those creatures to your pool. Really nice if you're against Saurians or Sanctum. Yeah, just great. World Tree is an artifact. It's a location. It has action, return a creature from your discard pile to the top of your deck. More creature recursion is good. One thing I like about this one is that it really incentivizes you to pick something that's not untamed, to pick something that is what you think you'll probably go into next turn. Although that does telegraph to your opponent a little bit. All right, that's it. That's actually all the untamed cards from Dark Tidings. Um, there's a lot of good, interesting stuff in there. And I really, really, really think like again the rush ability here is really solid and comparable to Coda. The biggest problem it has is Coda has Key Charge and Chota Hazri, whereas this set only has Key Frog. Key Frog is a little harder to fire than Key Charge, and and then Additionally, um, well, yeah. Although I guess maybe Keyfrog, oh, there's no Nepenthe seed, but Keyfrog is actually more. It's easier to recur in this set than a key charge would be for sure. Um, so there are ways to make it fire a lot, and in fact, one of the ways to consistently fire a key frog is with a Fangtooth Cavern, but you could do it with Waste Knot as well, um, or Piranha Monkeys. So there are always options, um, and then hopefully there are options to get the key frog back into your deck later as well and get to do it again. But it would be most decks can't do it multiple times in the same turn, like you would be able to do with like a key charge slash uh, Nepenthe Seed or Chota Nature's Call type situation. So anyway, but that's okay. But it is still very good in my opinion. Good stuff. So that was Dark Tidings Untamed. Hope you enjoyed and that maybe feel inspired to give some decks a try that maybe you had thought oh, this isn't good enough. But go look at whether you have any from Dark Tidings that have a nice burst angle comparable to Coda. I think DT decks in general are a little underrated by the algorithm, by SAS. Not the algorithm, but SAS. And so you have some opportunity to find hidden gems and sneak them on, uh, sneak them onto the battlefield. Yeah, well, that's it. Thanks again, and I hope that you get out there and forge some keys.